Hi everybody, this is just some quick help with assignment 1, problem 1. So what I have here is a part that, or a sketch that looks somewhat similar to what you're doing for this problem, in as much as it contains a bunch of straight lines with given dimensions on it. So let's go ahead and take a look at how I would create this part. So I'm going to click over here into SolidWorks and I'm going to start a new part. And if you notice, the units on the drawing are in inches, so we have 2.25, 4, and 1.5 inches. So if I look down here in the lower right-hand corner, I am in the inch/pound/second dimension. So that's dimensions, that's what I want. And I'm going to go ahead and go up here to my new, no, I already created a new part, sorry. So I'm going to go here and start a new part. All right, so now I'm just going to go up and click on the Sketch tab. I'll select Sketch, and in this case, I'll just put it on the front plane. All right, so now I need to decide where I want to start the part. For this one, I'm going to start here at this point because I can come down 2.25, go over 4, and go up 1.5 before I have to deal with these other angles. So this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go into the line tool, and now I'm going to do this by line segment. So to draw a line segment, I'm going to click and hold my left mouse button. So I'm going to click, I'm going to drag downward, make sure I get that vertical constraint icon, and I'm going to let go. And now I just have a single line segment drawn. I'm going to go to my Smart Dimension tool, click, drag, left click again, and I'm going to enter 2.25. Now if I look down at the bottom of my sketch is now fully defined because I have a fully defined single line segment now. So I'm going to go back to my sketch, my line tool, and I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to left click. Now I'm holding while I'm dragging. Now if you notice, it's a little hard to notice on my screen, but it might be easier on yours, that you have these yellow lines that show up. And what they do is they say, hey, you've just started a new line from another straight line. Maybe you want to know where the parallel or perpendicular lines are, which is of course what I want, because I'm going to make sure that I get that vertical, the horizontal constraint to show up. So I'm just going to let go. And now again, I need to go to my Smart Dimension tool. I should note that I'm still in the line tool. So instead of getting out of the line tool, I'm just directly going to the Smart Dimension tool. It turns on, I click, so left click, drag, left click again. And in this case, I'm going to enter the dimension of 4. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit, get myself positioned a little bit. I'll hold the control key and my little middle mouse buttons, let me pan a little bit. And I'm just going to hit my escape key to get out of the dimension tool. So again, if you look down here, I'm fully defined. So now I have 2 dimensions I need to put in. I'm going to again create a line. In this case, I'm not going to worry about the yellow lines that show up because I want to be over here somewhere. So I'm just going to drop it there. Now you see what's that? It's not going to put a constraint on, but it's telling me that if I let it go here, I would be directly horizontal to the midpoint of that line that's 2.25 inches. If I do it, it doesn't matter. It's not going to lock anything down. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go directly to the Smart Dimension tool. I'll put in this dimension, so left click. Now, one of the things you got to be careful about is that you don't want to put in a vertical dimension or a horizontal dimension. You want to put in an aligned dimension. So if you look at the mouse icon, there's the right mouse button is blue and there's a little lock underneath it. So that's telling me that if I hit the left mouse button now, I'm now locked into that align mode, which is what I want. And now the icon is that if I hit the blue mouse button, it will unlock. So if I do that again, so I'm just going to hit be unaligned, hit the left mouse button, and I'm just going to drop the dimension somewhere. And I'll change this to being 1.5. So now again, I'll hit the escape key to get out, and you'll notice that I'm now underdefined. Well, I'm underdefined because while the radius or the length of this line is specified, its angle isn't. So I can just trace out a nice 1.5 radius circle right now. That's not what I want to do. So I'll go back to my Smart Dimension tool. I will left click and left click. Now, what just happened there? Well, I was talking and not paying attention, and my first left click was on the center point of the line. I didn't want, that's not what I want. So I'll hit escape and hit escape again. I'm still in the dimension tool, so now I'll be careful not to click on that midpoint. So I'm just clicking on the line itself and click on the line itself here. And now I get the angular dimension of what I want, which is 135 degrees. Okay, so now again, I'm fully defined. Now these last two, well, the first one here, the one that I'm about to put in, is a 90-degree angle. So that's straight, but I don't know what the length of it is. So let's see how we do that. So again, I'm going to just put it in as a line segment. So I'm just going to click and drag. And I'm going to, again, use those lines to make myself perpendicular. And I'll put it in an approximate location. So I just put in the line segment now. So now I'm going to put in, I'm still in the line tool. So now what I'll do is I'll just click. I don't need to make a line segment because I don't have to click and hold to make the line segment because I'm doing it automatically because I'm going between a point and a point. And SOLIDWORKS knows that I'm doing that. So what has happened, I'm still in the line property tool. I can get out of that. I can hit escape to get out of the tool. I now have a gray enclosure because I have the shaded sketch contours on. I can turn that off, make it look a little bit easier to see. And I'm underdefined. But let's take a look at why it's underdefined. So if I take this, you'll notice that it's semi-defined. You see there's a definite thing going on here. And it seems related to the angle, right? So the line, the length of the blue line is changing, but it's changing in some defined fashion with the angle that the line makes. So you can see that there's a relationship between the two of them. So this is what is happening, that they're not independent to each other. And also this angle isn't independent. So when I go in here and put in my Smart Dimension tool, and make that 120 degrees, that locks down the length of both of these lines and that interior angle. So there's a couple different ways of figuring out what the length of these lines would be. Maybe that's what I'm being asked for, or maybe I'm being asked for the distance between these 2 points. One of the ways you can do it, well, first off, let me point out that the sketch is now fully defined. Well, you can do that using the Smart Dimension tool. So I come here, I can click on it, and again, I'm going to left click so I stay aligned. But what's going to happen here is that the length of that line is fully specified. So if I put a dimension tool in, SOLIDWORKS is going to be confused. It's going to say, but it already knows what the length of that line is. So when I left click, it brings up this box that says, do I want to make that dimension driven? And indeed, that is what I want to do. It can't be a driving dimension because I would have to turn off one of the other dimensions if I wanted to do that. So I'm going to say OK. So now just to show you why that means a driven dimension, if I change this dimension to 2.5, this is going to change. All the other dimensions are going to stay the same. So how I change the dimension is, I'm still in the dimension tool, by the way, so I'll hit escape to get out of the dimension tool. And I'm going to come over here, and then when I get close to an object that is a dimension, I get that dimension icon shows up next to my cursor, just as a line tool would show up here. So I'll come over here and then I'll double click on it, and that brings up the modify box, and I can change this to say, oh, when I change it to 3. So it changes, and notice all the other dimensions stay the same, but the driven dimension changed. And I'll come back here and change it back, and I'll make it 2.25. Now some of you, it's inevitable, will say, well, if you click on the line, you can see information about it over here. There are parameters and there are additional parameters. So the additional parameters are telling you where the endpoints are. So the first endpoint is at 0, 0. The second endpoint is over 2.45 and up 1.47, gives you the total delta X and delta Y. All great information, but you shouldn't change any of the dimensions here. You can, let me again show you, if I come over here and click at 2.25, you could have come in here and changed that to 3 in this location as well. I choose not to do it like that. I always like to do everything from inside the graphics window because I'm dealing with the model itself. So I'll double click that and bring it back to 2.25. Okay, I'm not going to, but just to keep the video to a set length, but of course I could put on driven dimensions here and here and find out what those are. But I can go into the Evaluate tab and click on Measure. And you'll note that sometimes the measure tool comes in shrunken down like this. You really want to open it up here so you can see all the information it's willing to give you. And let's say I come over here, measure icon showing up. I click on this line and it'll tell me that the length of the line is 3.69 inches. I can come in and change the units so I can get more precision there if I want, but it's by default, all the dimensions are set to give me 2 decimals worth of accuracy. So that's what I'm left with. Again, you can go over here onto the line properties or into the property manager to look at the properties of the line and get some more specific information. But if I was asking you for the length of the line, I would just be asking for 2 significant figures. You can come in here, right click and clear your selections. I could get the angle by clicking on both lines. So it'll give me the angle of 105 degrees and the total length of those 2 lines, which is kind of cool. Again, I can clear the selections and say I wanted to find the distance between this point and that point. So I can click on 2 points. It gives me the total distance and also gives me the X and Y locations or the segments. A lot of information there. So I think this leads into one of the other problems, but what would happen if I wanted to actually get the mass of this and give it a particular material? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude it. So I'll go to Features, Extruded Boss. All right, it goes into its isometric mode. I'll just pull it out a little bit, so 1.38, and I'll say OK. And right now it doesn't have a material. Material is not specified. By the way, you are not going to see this thing solid bodies. I have that turned on. We'll do that in a later lab. And I am going to go up to the Evaluate tab, click on Mass Properties, and you'll see that I have a volume and a surface area, but I also have a mass because there's this default density that SOLIDWORKS just tosses out for a general object where the material isn't specified. But if I close this down, right click on material, you get a bunch of basic materials here, but you can also click on edit material and you can come in here and find a bunch of different things. So there's a bunch of different steels and irons and aluminum alloys, plastics, etc. So maybe I'll make this gray cast iron. So you can come in here and tell you, so the units are either in English or metric or SI, whatever you want. And the density here is 0.26. So I'll hit apply, that applies it, and I'll have to hit close. So you'll notice that the color of the object has changed because there is some appearance information that is included when you add a material. And now when I go to Mass Properties, I will click on here. So the mass is now 4.62 pounds with the correct density. All right, so hopefully this has helped. I will post this video and I will create another one for the other, well, create 2 more videos for the other ones.